So, as I mentioned, our topic today is getting started with QGIS Cloud. This is going to be a very introductory webinar, sort of assuming that you probably know how to use QGIS at least a little bit, but nothing much beyond that, and really starting from the beginning. Before I get into it too much, I do want to point out the VCGI YouTube page where you will find this webinar once it's recorded, but also where you will be able to find other QGIS related webinars that we've done in the past. So if you're interested but you actually don't know all that much about using QGIS, you can check out what we have posted here. There are other topics, but if you scroll through this, you will see some QGIS topics. And our YouTube page is called VT Geospatial. You can also get to it from the front page of our regular website, which is vcgi.vermont.gov, or if you just search on VCGI. Let's see, one other thing I want to mention. So QGIS is the software that we're going to be using to actually make our map, which then will export to QGIS Cloud. So I just want to mention QGIS briefly, qgis.org, free open source GIS software, as you can see here. Just have to go to the website and download the software. It's pretty straightforward. There is also a fair amount of what they call documentation, which is access to user guide, training manual, and online training tutorials. It goes through tutorials that are actually very helpful. You can also just find a lot of tutorials and other sorts of information on the web if you just do some searches. And my final mention is to make sure that people who are interested in QGIS know that the FOSS 4G conference is going to be taking place in Boston in 2017. FOSS stands for Free and Open Source Software. 4G refers to for geography or geospatial, I guess. And so this conference focuses on open source GIS software, and it's going to be taking place in Boston 2017. So just wanted to mention that. Okay. So QGIS Cloud, not surprisingly, has a website. It's based in the cloud, and it's actually qgiscloud.com, because you have some options when using QGIS Cloud. So the first thing to point out is that there is obviously a free version, which is, to be honest, the main reason that I'm doing a training on it or doing this webinar, because it is a free option. It's nice to have a free way to publish online maps, to create online mapping applications. It also has a pro version, and I just looked up the conversion here, and it says €65 per month, which is about $70 per month. So if you find that this is useful enough that it's worth purchasing the pro version, it's going to have a lot more functionality that I honestly don't know much about, because I am not going to be taking advantage of that. So if it's of interest to you, look into it. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about the free version today, the free plan. QGIS Cloud also has a section called documentation, which in this case is just one simple quick start guide, which is perfectly useful. It actually covers exactly what we're going to do right now. So I'll just point out what it says, since it's what I was going to go over anyway. You do have to have QGIS on the desktop version of QGIS in order to use or take advantage of QGIS Cloud. We will be actually creating our map in QGIS, the desktop version. So that's the first thing you'll want to do, is install QGIS. You also do have to have a QGIS account before you try to publish your map to QGIS Cloud. So at this website, we'll briefly look at how you create that account. It's very simple. Once you have your account, you've downloaded you have your QGIS software, and you start using it, you're going to install the QGIS plugin in your QGIS software. In order to install, or basically turn on plugins, some of which download with the software, some of which it'll fetch for you when you say you want to install it, you're going to click on the plugin dialog. It's a plugin menu up in the top. We'll show you that in a minute. You'll go through the list. You'll see QGIS Cloud. You'll just put a little X in the box next to it and click install, and it'll show up. As you can see, it shows up as kind of a little panel over here on the left of your QGIS panels. When you're ready to do something with your map, well, in this case, they're doing it in a slightly different order than I would, but they basically say you have to log into QGIS Cloud from that plugin. So once we're in QGIS, we're going to log into that. You're going to create a map, and then you're going to go through a few steps to to publish that map to QGIS Cloud. Okay, so you know now that there's a little review of this back on the QGIS Cloud page as well. Quick start. So if you don't already have an account, you would click on sign up. All you have to provide is a username, your email, your password twice. Once you do this and click sign up, you'll have to do a quick confirmation process where you go to your email, you'll, I think, click on a link that they send you, and at that point you'll have a live account. Since I already have an account, I'm going to go ahead and sign in now. But you'll see that I have an empty account because I cleaned out what was in here before. So this is what it looks like when you very first set it up. You click on maps and you can see I have no maps. So let's go ahead and open up QGIS and make a map. I do have a slightly older version of QGIS installed. I was having some trouble with a newer version. Oops. And so I went ahead and went back to an older version. I think I need to get back in here and install the newer version. But nothing major is different in this version than any newer version you might be using. All right, so here's QGIS. Anyone who's familiar with GIS software, even if you're not familiar with QGIS, you'll see that it's all very similar layout. There's a bunch of tools and tabs and menus. There's the table of contents or the layer list, and there's the map view. So the first thing, oh, I forgot I was going to undo this. So let's pretend for a second that I don't have the Cloud plugin already in place. So what you would do is click on that plugins menu, and eventually you'll get to this list of plugins. As you can see, there's a lot of default plugins available here, some of which are already turned on and some of which are not, depending on whether you've turned them on or whether they were turned on by default. Okay. So here's QGIS Cloud. So if we didn't already have this turned on, you would simply click here to put a plus sign there and then click install. And it would take just a second and it would appear. Since we already have it installed, even though it's not visible right now, all we have to do is click here to get it to show up. All right, so now we are ready to make a map. I'm going to make a very simple map and share a few tips that I've figured out in trying to work on this. The most important tip is that the more you use map services in creating your map, the better off you're going to be. That's not a limitation, it's just something that's going to make things go quicker and in some cases maybe a little bit easier. So let me just go ahead and add in a service. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I forgot that one of the neat things about QGIS Cloud is actually the fact that it offers you some services that are very easy to include in your map because they're right here in the QGIS Cloud plugin interface. If you click on the Map tab and then click on Add Background Layer, you'll see, you'll see that you have a bunch of options here, and each one of these actually has multiple options within it. So there's OpenStreetMaps, Google Maps, Bing Maps, MapQuest, OSM, Stamen, which is actually what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the watercolor. So these are basically a variety of different base maps that you can choose from. And this is, in fact, just a map service that's coming in. So that's, I know right off that that's going to be easy to deal with. I'm also going to add a VCGI web map service. So I'm not going to go through the process of starting from scratch, adding a service in the sense that I already have some here that I've used in the past. If you're interested in learning how to do this, check out one of the other webinars that's about adding data to a map. So I just have to choose, because these are listed here because I've used them before. And these are the names that I gave them actually, so you can see there's some misspellings. So I'm choosing our base map, and this is the VGIS base map, something that's created by VCGI. And it's called a base map actually because it has lots and lots of different data layers, but I am not going to use the whole base map or all of these data layers. I just want, town boundaries. So I'm just clicking on town boundaries. I'm going to make sure that I've changed my image encoding to PNG. Make sure whenever you bring in a service that you're not using TIFF. That will make it look very odd when it comes in. From what I read, you can use JPEG or PNG, but I actually find that PNG is more reliable in terms of how the service comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and add that and close that. You can see it's showed up here. And there we go. All right, so it's not perfect, but it is a town boundary layer that's easy to add. If I wanted to, I could definitely use a local data layer that I have on my computer for the town boundaries. I'm just choosing not to because it's one less layer that's going to have to get uploaded in this process if I use the service. So I'm going to use the service even though it's got the annoying dotted boundaries that I can't change the symbology on. Okay, so those are my two services that I want to bring in. And then my final thing is a local vector data layer that I have right on my computer. Oops. And it is simply the airports of Vermont. So as you can see, it's a shapefile. And there it is, a bunch of dots. So here's my second tip, and this might only relate to people in Vermont who are using Vermont data. I'm not sure. Well, actually, I do know that other people have encountered this problem. I'm not sure how widespread it is, but when I first started trying to use QGIS Cloud, I found that in the next step where I tried to upload local data into a little database that QGIS Cloud creates for me, that I would get an error message. And the error message referred to the coordinate reference system, the ID that's used to indicate what coordinate reference system is being used. And it basically was saying it either didn't recognize or it was an invalid code, and so it couldn't do it. And I was sort of confused by that, knowing that our data is projected and it has a PRJ file that indicates the correct coordinate system. There's something about our PRJ files, our shape files, I'm not sure exactly what, that is not, the code or the format is not recognized by QGIS, despite the fact that it has no problem bringing the data into the QGIS desktop product or converting on the fly. So I'm not really sure why there's a problem. But as a workaround, I determined that if I did what I'm about to do, which is simply taking the original shapefile, saving as a different file format, and in this case I figured GeoJSON, because it's an open source GIS format, I sort of had a feeling that if I did this, whatever the issue was would be resolved, because QGIS doesn't actually have a problem with our data or our coordinate system. So I figured it would probably convert it in whatever way it needed to. So I'm just going to take my data and save it as a GeoJSON file. And the other thing, and I honestly don't know why this is, but you need to indicate, well, we'll see if this works. I did not actually set the CRS in the project, so we'll see if this works. Actually, let's just do a quick, sorry, I'm usually very good about remembering to set my project CRS before I start. Okay, try that again. save as. And I'm going to set the CRS to project CRS. So rather than, I'm not sure again why this makes a difference. Actually, this may be why we're able to get around whatever it's interpreting about that particular shapefile. Since I've indicated Vermont State Plane for the project, it can take that information and indicate it however it works for QGIS. All right, and then the one, nope, that's it, set CRS. Okay. It takes a second. Okay, and when it's done, you can see it says it's done. It shows up, so my new GeoJSON file is shown up in my list of layers. I can turn off my other layer, and you can see that it's the GeoJSON file that's here. So I can actually get rid of this one. Just going to remove it from the project. Okay, so now I have a layer that I'm actually going to deal with the symbology. Make it an airport. And, whoops. And maybe a little bit bigger. There's my map. Okay, so there's my simple map that I've made. Once I know what else I was going to do. I was going to put some labels on there. And there we go. All right, so there's my simple map. It just shows the airports, airport locations with a little airplane symbol and some labels. My next step, and as you can see, this is part of what the process. You need to do your map, finish your map in QGIS. Do your symbology, do your labeling, whatever you want to do. Do your fussing around with the map now. When it's done, you're going to deal with the upload. So as you can see, the only data that I have to upload is the VT Airports file. Obviously, if I had more local data in here in this project, they would show up as multiple rows here. But I only have the one, so I'm going to go ahead and click Upload Data. So this is the moment where if I didn't have my QGIS account already set up, I would be stopped in my tracks. But since I do, I just have to log in. And I could have done that login as soon as I turned on the plugin, of course. And this will just take a second. And actually, if you look down at the bottom of my screen, if you can see that, it says uploading to database. It's sort of created this database with a goofy answer. Now it says replace layer VT airports. So what it's doing right now is it's replacing my local data. In this project that I'm working on, it's replacing my local data with a web map service, actually, that it has just made out of that data. Because it has done that, it immediately pops up this window to say Save Project, because it's saying, you know, we've changed your project, and now you either want to overwrite your previous project or you want to save this project with a different name. And of course, I haven't even saved it yet. You can see I've got some old ones on here. I'm going to go ahead and say QGIS Cloud. Okay, so that's an important thing to understand just in case it matters to you. Your original project that had local data in it, you normally would have saved that, of course. And once you go through this process of uploading your local data, you've now created a project that has the local data replaced with a web map service that exists in QGIS Cloud. So that's the first step. The second step is publish map. So basically, it's just two steps. Once you've finished your map, you go to your QGIS Cloud plugin, you upload your data. As you can see, we're done, so we don't have to do that anymore. And then the second step is simply to publish your map. Oops. takes a second, and once it's done, it says map successfully published, and it gives you, this is how you know this is a published map. You have all of these links on the map page, the web map, the mobile map, the public WMS. So again, I have actually created a web map service of my airport data. Actually, it's of my airport, it's of my airport data. I think it includes also the town boundaries as well, pretty sure. We'll see in just a second. Map admin, we can check out. This will take you to the admin section of your account. All right, so let's just check out our web map. Oh, looks like we're in the ocean. What happened there? Ah, we are in the ocean. That's no good. How interesting. As usual, when you do a live demonstration, strange things happen that did not happen when you did your, well, that's odd. Well, I'm going to show you the features of our web map that we just created, and then perhaps we shall go back and try to figure out why it did that. Okay, and somebody sent in a question, and I will get back to that in just a second. We may very well redo this, so I can cover that again. Okay, so the basic thing here is that it's a very simple web map. It has zoom in, zoom out. You can identify. So click on, just like in a GIS program, you click on the identify icon in order to turn it into an identify tool. And then you either hover or click on your maps. Actually, there we go. So if you actually click on a feature, you'll get the full attribute, listing of attributes for that feature. So something to think about, I suppose, is if you're going to create a map like this, you might want to clean up your attribute table before you actually use it in a map that you're going to publish, because obviously something like this is not terribly user-friendly. Works, but you can see you can turn layers on and off, one of the primary benefits other than zoom in and out. And you can turn your background layer off, which is also nice. You have some measure tools. Not sure how accurate those are going to be right now given our location. And that includes distance and area. And you do a little double click. I'm clicking single left click to create vertices or vertices in the line or the area, and then double click to finish. And actually, I should point out that the results for those measurements are down here at the bottom of the screen. Notice that it's also telling me the coordinates wherever I am on the map, also down at the bottom of the screen here. It's giving me the scale down at the bottom, this little scale bar here to the left. Yeah, so pretty basic. There's some search capability with your identification. If you have multiple layers on here, you can choose topmost hit or all layers, which I assume is going to let me no, I'm not sure how that's giving me all layers, but well, not sure how that's offering me all layers, but that's all right. Maybe it's because it's a, yeah. Okay, so I think those are the main characteristics of the actual very simple web map that we've produced. Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm going to actually close this, go back and figure out why that turned out the way it did. I think I am going to do this over one more time. So somebody asked a question about the fact that when you very first try to upload your data, it's going to say you have to create a database. And I think because I've done it before, I'm not getting, I might not be getting exactly the same pop-up that you would the first time you do it. And so as a result, I already have this little database here, and it may just be that you have to say yes the very first time. And because all it's doing is creating a database in QGIS Cloud in your account. All right, let me just close this all together. Start over. Okay. All right, so let's start with our background layer. Oh, no, actually, I'm not doing that, am I? Starting with my project properties. I think it was already, but that's right. All right, so I've definitely set it to Vermont State Plane just to set it to something. And now I'll add my background layer and add in my town boundaries. Okay, so in here, it's all lining up properly. Let's hope for the best. I think I am just gonna, oh, maybe I should. Yeah, I think I'll start from scratch. So we'll add the airports in again, the shape file, and then we will save as. Our GeoJSON file. We will set that to project CRS and click OK. Okay. So there's our airports. Give them a quick update. And labels, actually, that's right. Okay, so there's our map. Now we are ready to upload our data. So this is the point at which someone had commented or asked about the fact that it says you have to create a database here. Actually, let me just check something. No, this doesn't have a database. So I guess if it is telling you you have to create a database, I think it's going to give you the option to just say okay, and it's just going to create it. It's not something that you have to actively do. It's going to create it for you in your QGIS Cloud account. Okay, so there it is uploading. And now it's replacing my local layers with the service it's created. And I'll just replace that. All right, now we can publish. Let's see if this one looks a little more spatially correct. All right, that looks better. There's Lake Champlain. Okay, so I suspect that that has to do with some aspect of when I set my coordinate reference system. So I'll stick with my normal advice, which is set it whatever you set it to, set it before you start your map. And when, excuse me, when saving as with your local data, saving as to something else, if you need to do that, make sure to set it to project CRS, not layer CRS. Okay, so there's our map again. Notice that there's a mobile version. That's one of the nice things about this. It creates a version that is appropriate for mobile. And the other thing I wanted to demonstrate is just what it means that it's created this WMS. This means that if your local organization or you individually have data that normally just sits on your computer or on your server if you're at work, but you'd like to be able to share it with people or with coworkers or whatever, rather than having to send copies of it via email or on DVDs or on drives, you can actually just publish a web map service using QGIS Cloud, which is a pretty cool option for free. There is a limit to how many of these you're allowed to do, I'm sure. I didn't bother to look at that since I'm not doing high production on QGIS Cloud, but that's something you'd want to look at if that could be a limitation. So let's just go ahead and let's see, how did I do this before? I'll just open up a second instance of this. No. Oh, I know. I'm just going to do a right click, copy link location, and then I'm going to open up a new map, close this, and I am going to use another web map imagery service. So one of the other things I have in here is best of color cached. All right, so this is an imagery service that we publish for ortho photography for Vermont. Now this is where it's most important not to leave this on the default that it goes to for some reason, which is TIFF. Go ahead and change that to PNG. And I'm going to give it a name. I can go ahead and add that. There it goes, just taking a second. Oh, and it looks like I forgot to, again, I'm doing bad practices here. Okay, so there is some color imagery, and now I want to add in our brand new web map service. So here I am actually going through the process of adding a new web map service. You can see I just clicked on new, that popped open this window. I'll give it a name. Don't need username and password. Now I have to connect to it. There it is. And so here's the thing to notice. Because I actually had two things other than that background layer that I'm not sure exactly why it distinguishes the background layer, but obviously that's something that's being provided through QGIS Cloud or QGIS in a sense. The ones that I had actively added to my map project were the airports, which had been a local layer, and the town boundaries. And it has actually published both of those as part of my web map service. So I can add the whole thing, which would lump together the airports and the town boundaries, or I can actually add them separately, which in some ways is more useful because then they show up separately. So I can add the airports, and then I can add the town boundaries. And there they are. Now, if you're not that familiar with web map services, a key thing to know is that when you add data this way, it is pre-symbolized, and you can't edit that. If it's a web map service, you cannot edit the symbology, the color, line thickness, all of that. So this is a way to conveniently provide data over the internet. It allows you to not have to save, copy, or update the data, because if you as the WMS publisher, if you need to update your data, you go ahead and update your data and it will be magically and automatically updated by for all the users. Just change the order here. Come on. Okay, can't do that for some reason. There we go. Okay, so I just want to point that out because that's also kind of a powerful thing to be able to do. Let me just take a look at some of the questions to see if there are any other things. There's one other thing I want to mention, which unfortunately I have to mention it in the context of not successfully having figured it out yet. But okay. So somebody asks, is there a way to project images and video associated with the map data by writing script and embedding it in the attribute table? I do not know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. I would assume that if you have, the one thing I assume would work is if you have URLs in your attribute data, then obviously when you do a identify option or an identify action on your web map and see the full list of attributes listed on the right there, you would have a live link. I'm pretty sure you would have a live link there. But I do not know anything about customizing this beyond pretty much what I've shown you today. Oh, actually, that's not true. There are two things we're going to talk about in just a second that are very limited, and they're not that exciting, but they are additional things. And I believe one of them has to do with the second question. Are GIS Cloud maps, QGIS Cloud maps, forced to be public? Can you share the map among a group of users rather than making it public? So let's look at that question. If I go ahead and log into my QGIS account, actually, let me just see if, I don't think I can do it from here. Oh, maybe I'm still logged in. No. All right, so if I log into my account, and remember, I can actually get to what I'm about to show you right from my project. If I was still in that project, there was a link that took me right to the admin section of our account, of my account. So I'm only doing this because I had already closed that project. All right, so now I'm logged in. You can see I'm logged in up here. When I click on maps now, we actually see my two maps that I created, one of which is in the ocean somewhere and one of which is not. And if we go into edit, this actually means edit the settings, not edit the map. So you can see here's the name. Now, an interesting thing, I believe this is a function of this being the free version of QGIS Cloud. Not a lot of these things I actually can't change. Notice that I can change the name purportedly, although I have to admit yesterday when I tried to change the name, it didn't seem to take. I may not have been patient enough, might just take a little while for the change to register. But you can edit these words. You can delete this and put in a different name. But then a number of these settings I cannot change. I get the big red no. Language I can change. Identify mode I can change for some reason. I'm not sure why that's an important setting, but there it is. You can see a bunch of these other things cannot change. Scales is an interesting one that when I tried this in the past, this did work. When I tried it yesterday, it didn't, so I didn't bother to demonstrate it today. But essentially what this does is allow you to set some predetermined scales at which you would like your map to be viewed. So rather than letting it be the whole world, if your map is focused on your town, you don't really want people using the viewer to look at the whole world, you can set it to an appropriate scale for maybe the initial view of your town and then just 2 or 3 other scales that seem appropriate to you. So you can type those in here, and again, as I said, when I tried this the other day, it worked. When I tried it yesterday, it didn't. But it did set it so that when I initially went into the map, it was at the initial scale, and when I clicked on the zoom in, it only let me click into those predetermined scales. And then, so access for other users. is another setting that is not activated. So I have a feeling that the answer to the question about the different levels of access, whether you can just release this to people people that you would choose to allow to view it, is going to be determined by which kind of plan you have. So there's my quick answer to the question about whether you can limit access or identify certain people to give access to. Let's just check whether it says that in the plans options. There's more viewer customization. You have more storage space. Yeah, maps and WMS with restricted access. So that would be one of the paid options. Okay, so someone else had a question. Let me just remember. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to point out before I answer last few questions is in our project. Let me go ahead and go back to that. Okay, it's just taking a second to load. In our project, I did not create a print composer, a layout for my map. So for anybody who's used QGIS before, or if you've used ArcGIS, it's the same idea. We're currently in the data view. We're taking a look at just really focusing on the data itself and how it's symbolized. If we were wanting to create a layout of a map with a title and legend and all those other aspects of a map, we would use the print composer. And we would create a particular layout. We would set a bunch of settings. So this is setting the size and orientation of the page. Then we would start putting things on it, like the map. We would adjust how it all looks. So now that I've got the map on there, I'm going to change the properties for the map. We would put a legend on. We would do all sorts of great stuff. By creating a print composer, at least one, in your project and having that exist as part of your project, when you publish that project to QGIS Cloud, it actually enables the print option in QGIS Cloud. However, there is a bizarre limitation in that print option, which is the reason I didn't really focus on this. I figured if we had time, I would let you know about this. And obviously, the nice thing about that is that when you then go to print that map, it includes the elements that you've put in your layout. But the limitation is that it limits it to a 1 to 50,000 scale, which, like for me, wanting to do a map of the whole state of Vermont, I've got this at a scale of about 1.8 million to 1. So 1 to 50,000 doesn't really make sense if I want people to be able to zoom out or print a map that's at a different scale. Another issue is that it gives a warning about, here, let's just go ahead and do this and show you. All right, let's go ahead and close this and publish this. So a question I just got is actually whether you can edit the map once it has been published or whether you need to republish it. And I believe the answer is you need to republish it because you cannot publish the map within the QGIS Cloud interface. So I'm just going to go ahead and publish this again. Okay, go ahead and save it. All right, let's see if that change registered. Okay, good. We're not back in the ocean. So notice that print map has now been enabled. But when I click on it, you can see this limitation. So it gives you a range of scales at which to print, but the highest, or rather the smallest scale is 1 to 50,000, which is a little bit odd. I think if I had multiple layouts that I had created associated with that project, they would appear here. If I go ahead and print, I also get this little message up at the top which says, the server is generating a PDF file. For correct up to scale printing, please deactivate the option fit to page. And honestly, I can't figure out what it's talking about because I'm not sure where that option is set to fit to page that I need to change. I spent a little bit of time yesterday digging around whether it was the browser, QGIS project. I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure what this is talking about. And I have not successfully created a printable map that looks normal. The few that have at least popped something up, they don't look right. So I'm not sure if this is just a bug they haven't worked out yet or what, but the print option does not really seem to be useful. You can obviously just print your screen. You can do a print screen and then copy the image of the map and do a little bit of cropping and include that in a document. Not ideal options, but the main purpose of this is to create an online map. So hopefully they will make that print option a little bit more robust in the future. But that's kind of where it's at now as far as I can tell. Oh, and now that I think about it, I don't know that I've tried this in multiple browsers either. I think I've mostly been doing this in Internet Explorer, so that's something else that is worth checking out, whether that makes a difference. Okay, I think I have covered everything I wanted to in this very brief introduction, brief in the sense that we didn't cover all that much, but I just wanted to make sure that anybody that's interested in taking advantage of this would know the basic steps, and particularly if you're in Vermont or using Vermont data, know that little workaround to dealing with the error that pops up. Let me just check if there are any other questions. If people have questions, this is the time to send them. I think I've addressed all the ones I've gotten so far, but let me make sure. And maybe just to review them. So there was the question about creating a database, and again, QGIS Cloud is the one that's creating the database in QGIS Cloud. When I did it initially, it just did that automatically. So if you get a message about that, I believe it's just wanting you to confirm. I don't know about customizing your map in terms of images and video associated with the map data. And it looks like if you're using the free version of QGIS Cloud, it is indeed public. Your map is indeed going to be public. You have to do the pro version in order to limit that. Both in order to limit whether your map is public and in order to limit whether your web map service is public. Okay, someone asked a question about uploading the map but not getting the links. It says I created the map, but I can't find it in the web page. It appears I've used. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't see the links. So just to make sure you're looking in the right place, you do have to have your QGIS Cloud plugin on so that you can see it. It would be in the map tab. Notice that there are different tabs here, and you want to be in your map tab, and that's where you'll see them. If it's successfully published, you should see these here. Other than that, you should be able to log into your account and also see them there. So let me just try that here in Chrome. Or actually, let me go back over here. All right, so here I am. Let's update this, see what happens. Yeah, so here I am logged into my QGIS account, which I can get to by just going to qgiscloud.com and then clicking on sign in. So once I'm logged in, there's home, which is just their generic home page, and then there's maps, and maps is where you go to see your maps listed. So these two that I've created today are listed here. So in order to confirm that you actually have published maps, you should be able to see them here. In order to, the links for your maps, the regular web map, the mobile version of your web map, and the WMS are all these three first words are actually links. So again, you could do right click, save link as, or copy link address in order to access those and then share them with others or use them somewhere else. If you want, here's another sort of interesting option I forgot to point out. So once you've published your map, let's say you go to a friend's house and they've just installed QGIS, and you actually want to share your QGIS project, your desktop project, with them. There is this option to download the QGIS project from the cloud version of it. I haven't tried that yet, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work. I suspect it's going to work in part because it's using, rather than needing you to have the local data on your computer, it's obviously using the web map service that you created. So that's why that will work just fine. All right, I think that's it. I don't see any more questions. Just make sure. Oh, and then the final question that I think I did answer, but if you need to edit your map, you just do what I did a second ago, which is edit it in QGIS, not in QGIS Cloud, but in the desktop version of QGIS, and then just republish it. And it looks like you have to save it in your local instance before you can publish it. So pretty simple. And as long as you haven't changed the name, it'll just overwrite the existing. Just make sure, yeah. It's going to overwrite the existing version of it, cloud version of it. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for me. Remember that if this is useful or you want to share it with someone else, it is recorded and it will be posted at the VCGI YouTube page. If you have, you'll notice as you sign out that you are given a brief survey. I'd appreciate it if you'd fill that out and indicate whether this was useful and also if you have requests for other sorts of webinars in the future. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day.